With the last edition leaving us on the edge of battle and waiting to see the fate of Korl, we now have the final chapter of the Liberation arc of the Horizon Zero Dawn comic series. If you haven't caught our last 3 videos on this particular story, be sure to give those a watch to be all caught up on the story so far. But with that, let's dive in to issue 4. Our story picks up with Aloy and Erend hot on the trail of the Osram fugitive, Korl. Unfortunately, the trail involves scaling some pretty formidable cliff faces. Once over the top, winded but true to his word, Erend continues his first-hand account of the Liberation. At the gates of Meridian, the seminal battle for the Karja throne was about to begin. With his forces bolstered by those who had joined him in his march, Avad struck out at the city from 3 different fronts. Balan and his men began their climb up the mesa to the Temple of the Sun. Troops led by the renowned climber Urid scaled the cliffs below to infiltrate the royal palace, while Avad, Ersa, and Erend would lead the main force at the city gates. Mighty as they were, the gates were no match against the ingenuity of Petra Forgewoman as her Osram cannon blasted through. With the gate breached, Avad's forces stormed the City of the Sun. Once inside, chaos erupted. Karja commoners who had seen enough of Duran's madness took up arms against his loyalists. The slave pits holding countless outlanders were opened as captives fled the city. In this confusion, Duran ordered his most trusted to smuggle the Dowager Queen and his youngest son Itamen out of the city. They, along with High Priest Lucent Bahavas and Helis, the Terror of the Sun, would escape capture and eventually head to Sunfall. As the battle raged and Avad's forces pushed towards the palace, one member of their company was noticeably absent. Spotted looting a Karja shrine was Korl, reaping the spoils of war. After the battle, he would successfully escape also, but was made a wanted man. But the Liberators had bigger problems. Balan found himself surrounded by kestrels, guards rushed from the palace into the fray and pinned down Avad, Petra, and Ersa. Just when they were about to be overrun, Urid and his company finally arrived, and cut down Duran's men with a flurry of arrows. As the immediate danger passed, freebooters and Avad's Karja continued forward towards victory. The story then flashes to the present, as Aloy and Erend arrive at the trading post where they suspected Korl would attempt to sell his contraband. A hunch that would pay off. Once spotted by Erend, out of desperation, Korl activated one of Dervahl's machine lures. As Aloy cried out for those at the trading post to flee, 2 Longlegs descended upon them. While the huntress battled the machines, Erend went after Korl. A brutal fistfight between 2 bitter enemies, and a calculated battle between hunter and prey. After a time, Korl began getting the best of Erend, knocking him to the ground. "Wait," Erend cried out, feigning defeat. Expecting Erend to beg for his life, Korl stood over his adversary to admire his handiwork. But this gambit paid off, and bought just enough time for the Longleg that was charging at Korl to hit its mark, sending the brute flying. After, Aloy finished off the machine, while Erend beat Korl to near unconsciousness. Broken and beaten, Korl mumbled through his pain that Erend for once had fought like a sister, and she was forged from colder steel than anyone they used to run with. Though provoked, Erend remained in control, telling Korl that he'd soon be shipped back to the Osram capital of Mainspring to receive what was sure to be brutal punishment for his crimes from the tribe's Ealdormen. Korl had other plans. If he was going down, he was going to take his captors down with him. With bomb in hand, the area around Korl exploded, with Aloy and Erend leaping for cover to escape the blast. Luckily, only with minor injuries, both Aloy and Erend survived. The same could not be said for Korl. With danger no longer looming, Korl's last words began to fester with Erend as he recalled the final moments of the Liberation. With Avad, Ersa led the charge to the palace, where the prince came face to face with his father. Where Avad, despite all Duran had done, hesitated to put down his father, there was no such feeling with Ersa, as she was the one who ended the Mad King's life. She also had no pity on Dervahl, after trapping him before the Liberation, taking it one step further. Erend tells Aloy that she left the warlord with his worst enemy, who proceeded to torture Dervahl for the next several months. Payback in Ersa's mind to pay for his threat against the Carja and Avad. This torture would last until he was eventually rescued by Korl, but the damage had already been done, leading Dervahl down a path of vengeance that would eventually end Ersa's life. Recalling all this, with a little help from Aloy, Erend began to reconcile his relationship with his sister, who she really was, the good and the bad. From this, he would gain some closure with his loss and strive to learn from her legacy, closing the final chapter of the Liberation arc of the HZD comic series. As a lore fan, I really enjoyed all that Ersa's story added to what we have come to know about the Red Raids and the Liberation. It was also a nice surprise to have a lost quest brought to light before Aloy would go on to discover the identity of Dr. Sobek, and more context as to what drove Dervahl to become the ruthless man that we came to know while playing HZD. As far as revelations from this particular comic are concerned, it's hard not to immediately want to discuss the fate of Duran. Before this issue, it was commonly known that Avad was the one who put his father to the sword to end his reign, but this, as it turns out, is not the case. From a character perspective, the values and personality we know Avad to have, I'm not sure if I ever really bought into the fact that he could kill his father, no matter how far gone he may have been. How this narrative came to be accepted as fact amongst the Carja is never really elaborated on, whether purposeful or accidental. Regardless, we now know that Ersa was the one who personally saw to the death of Duran. Personally, I've really enjoyed both the Sunhawk and Liberation arc of these comics, and hope they continue in some form, adding even more depth to this world and story. Maybe even adding in what we may come to find in the Forbidden West. And that brings our journey to an end. If you'd like to see more content like this, likes and shares are always appreciated, and if you're hungry for more Horizon lore, consider subscribing and checking out the rest of our lore library. Also consider supporting the channel on Patreon, so we can keep making content just like this. Check out the link in the description. And as always, thanks for watching, and keep questing.